Okay. Greetings to everybody this evening. Tonight, I want to learn for Zechut for the Chatufim, for all Ptsuim, all those who've been injured, and especially Evyatar Menachem Chaim ben Zahava, the husband of a friend of mine, for whom they added a name last week. This past Motzei Shabbat, a couple of nights ago, they did. I couldn't go, but at Balin's in the hospital, they did a very large Malava Malka, musical Malava Malka for him. And they're optimistic at this point, and Bezrat Hashem, Chamsa, Chamsa, Chamsa should be back home like all the Chatufim and all the Psuim and everybody healthy and soon. Okay, what I want to do is I'm going to go straight to screen share because it's going to be mostly keeping on this evening on there, and I want to start on a final thought on Rifa'im. As you know, last week we spent the class on the topic of healing. We discussed the fact that it's not just physical healing, but spiritual and emotional, and it's about making a connection with Hashem, which is a theme you're going to see repeating soon, Bezrat Hashem. And because it is about ultimately connecting to Hashem, that's why the bracha is Rofei Cholei Amo Yisrael. Hashem is the one who heals those of Israel, even though Hashem is the Rofei Chol Basar Mafli Lasod, Hashem is the healer of all flesh, for all people sick. This is a different type of quote healing. It has to do with the relationship we have with Hashem. But there's a final thought I want to share with you. And it comes from a pasuk coming up in a few weeks in Parshat Shavua. Yaakov Avinu has a hitgalut. He has a revelation. Hashem appears to him. Each one of the avot had a specific first revelation. And in his first time that Hashem appears to Yaakov and he has a discussion with him, Yaakov makes a promise, which sounds like what? Doesn't make any sense. This isn't Parshat Shavua class, so I'm not going to get into the what aspect, but we're going to see what he's talking about. Vayidar Yaakov neder lemor. Yaakov made a promise, an oath. Im hiye Elohim imadi. If God will be with me, ushmarani baderech hazeh asher anochi olech, and He'll watch over me on this path I am going. V'natan li lechem le'echol uveged lilbosh, and He'll give me food to eat, or bread to eat, and clothing to wear. V'shavti v'shalom el beit avi, and I'll come back to my father's house in peace. V'aya Hashem li le'elokim, and then Hashem will be my God. So the obvious question is, what if Hashem doesn't do that? He won't be His God. Again, I don't want to discuss that. I want to discuss the highlighted words. In Hebrew, and I'll translate to English. Part of his promise or oath that he makes to God is that if God gives him bread to eat and clothing to wear, then etc. We've always learned from the time we're little, when we learned Torah for the first time, whether it was in Kita Aleph or you came to it as an adult, one of the things that's stressed very often is Hashem in the Torah does not waste a single word or letter. So if there's something, there is a reason. Generally speaking, when you have bread, you eat it. And generally speaking, you have clothing, you wear it. So it could have said, Natan li lechem, He'll give me bread, and then not have the word lechol, to eat. And it could have said uveged, and clothing, and not said lilbosh, to wear. We'd still understand exactly what he's saying. So why does it have to say Natan li lechem lechol? If he'll give me bread to eat, and He'll give me clothing to wear. And this ties right into the bracha Rifa'enu, and this is what is going to bring us a close to the bracha Rifa'enu. There are people who have closets full of clothing. And there are people who have plenty of food in the cabinet or in their pantry or in their refrigerator. But they're not able to make use of it because they're not healthy. The food, they could maybe have a problem with their stomach. The clothing, they can't get out of bed because they're sick. We want to be able to make use of the health. Now we're talking about the physical aspect right now. We want to make use of the fact that we have. No, it's just to say, give me bread or make sure I have clothing isn't sufficient. I want to be able to eat the bread. I want to be able to wear the clothing. I want to be in a position that I'm able to use this because I'll be healthy. That's the underlying current. And when Yaakov makes this deal, in quotes, when you get to Parshat Shavua in a few weeks about this pasuk, you remember it, you could ask the same question, like, what's this deal all about? Obviously, it's not a new question. But the one you should focus on for a moment here, in the context of Rifainu, the concept of healing, is that when Yaakov is asking for food to eat and clothing to wear, is because he doesn't want to be in a position. Oh, I promised that if you give me bread, then you're my man, you're my God, right? So Hashem fills his cabinet with bread, but Nebuch he's sick, he can't eat. Okay, so this is the implication is that he wants to be healthy as well. Okay, and with that we bring to close. And there's so much more to say, but I'm going to move on to the next bracha. There's so much more to say, but we're going to bring it close to the topic of Rifainu. What I want to do with this next bracha, which is called Barech Alenu, it's called Birkat Hashanim, the blessing of the years, which we'll discuss at some point soon. First, I'm going to just read and translate. We're going to digress for a few minutes to talk about halacha, what some rules about this particular bracha, and also some differences between Ashkenazim and Sfaradim. And then we're going to get into the depth of what this bracha is about. Most people, and correctly, associate this bracha with parnasa, with income, with making money, having stuff. And it's true. But you'll notice that nowhere in the bracha says anything about parnasa. Why is it called Birkat Hashanim, the blessing of the years? We'll have to see. But let's just see what the bracha means. Okay. Barech Alenu Hashem Elokeinu Tashana Azot Bet Kol Minei Tuatah L'Tova. Bless us Hashem this year and all the varieties of its produce for good, and bestow upon us what? Either v'tein bracha in the summer, Yimot HaChama, in the summer we say tein bracha, or v'tein talu matar, in the winter we say give us dew and blessing. Al Pnei Ha'adama, the face of the earth, B'sabeinu mituvecha, or B'sabeinu mituva, there's different girsaot. Satisfy us from your bounty, Uvarech shenatenu kashanim atovot, and bless us like all the good years. Ruchat Hashem mevarech hashanim, and blessed are you, the one who blesses the years. So again, on the surface, this sounds like just like, what exactly is this bracha? It sounds like it's asking you for produce, like let the stuff grow. In the summertime, we ask for blessing, which we know is dew. In the winter, we ask for talumatar, we ask for rain. So what really is this bracha? What is its status? And how does this different than the fact that we recently started saying Mashiva Ruach Moed HaGeshem, and before that in the summer, we would say Moed HaTal. And is it always said? What's the difference? So let's get into a little bit of that before we actually get into the nuts and bolts of this particular bracha. There's a Mishnah, two Mishnayot at the beginning of Masechet Ta'anit. It talks about two topics. One is called Givrot, Maskirin Givrot Geshamim, which is when do we start saying Mashiva Ruach Moed HaGeshem, that Hashem has the power to bring the wind and bring the rain. So we do it from the Yom Tov Rishon Shel HaChag. We do it on the beginning of the Chag, we do it at the beginning of the holiday, which is on Sukkot, but we know we do this, really there's a difference of opinion. It's not listed. I didn't bring home Mishnah. We do it on the last day of the Chag. But when do we start? It says, Ein sho'alim et geshamim ela samuch geshamim. But we only ask for the actual rain when it's close to the time of the rainy season. What's the difference? What's the difference between these two things? So the first topic is the topic of when we say Mashiva Ruach Moed HaGeshem. As you know, halacha is we start saying it on Shmini Atzeret. We say it on the last day of Sukkot. It's not the last day, it's the day after Sukkot. It's its own Chag. We start at Musaf, we start saying Mashiva Ruach Moed HaGeshem. That's not asking for rain. It's saying Hashem has the called Givurot Gishamim. These two words here, Givurot Gishamim, the power of rain, meaning that only Hashem, we acknowledge it, the bracha, and we talked about way longer why it's mentioned in that bracha, but we had that Hashem has the power to bring the rain and the wind. The second thing we do is in the bracha we're about to go through, which is in Barech Alenu, where we talk about either v'tein talu matar or v'tein bracha. When we talk about talu matar, that's sho'alin et geshamim. We're asking for it to rain. So the difference between the two statements is that the early part of Shemona Esrei just mentions that Hashem brings rain, and that only He has the power. The second statement, which we make in this bracha, the ninth bracha, is we're asking for the rain. Okay, that's the basic thing first you have to understand. So if that's the case, wait a minute. So why do we say Mashiva Ruach in on Shmini Atzeret? But let's just talk about Israel for a minute because there's a difference between Israel and outside of Israel. And then only starting this Thursday night on Zayin Cheshvan, we start to ask for it to actually rain. Why don't we do them at the same time? We're going to come to that also. But first, let's talk about a little bit of halacha. Let me make this bigger. This has to do with when you make mistakes. First of all, when you say it, the B'tein Talumatar, when you start to say it, and in Israel and Achutz La'aretz, and also what happens if you make a mistake. Okay, so this is the Dinei Birkat HaShanim Ubo Hei Seifim. We're only going to do a little bit. Birkat HaShanim, which is the bracha we're doing now, Barech Alenu. Tzarich lomar ba bimot hageshamim. In this winter time, you're supposed to say the rainy season, winter. You're supposed to say B'tein Talumatar. Matchilin lishol matar bechutz la'aretz, and you start to ask for rain outside of Israel in Mariv on the 60th day after Tefufat Tishrei, which if you see, remember your Sidurim with the English, which I'm sure many of you still use, I hope. If you're from Chutz La'aretz, it says on December 4th or December 5th, depending if it's a leap year. Then Haggah, that's Haggah L'Mamim. Ube'eretz Yisrael, here in Israel, so this is very timely. Matchilin lishol milel zayin b'mar cheshvan. You start to ask for rain, i.e., you start saying B'tein Talumatar on the night Mariv of this Zayin Cheshvan, which this week, this Thursday night, is Zayin Cheshvan. So this Thursday night at Mariv, we start to say it. And how long do we say it? V'shoalina tfilat mincha shel erev yom tov rishon shel Pesach, u'misham ve'elach poskim milishol. So then you keep saying that until mincha erev Chag, erev Pesach. And then because Chag, we don't say the weekday Shmona Esrei. And on Pesach itself, we then start on the first day, we say Tfilat Tal or Tikkun Tal, depending on your Nusach. And then we stop on the Chol HaMoed, we stop saying B'tein Talumatar, we move into B'tein Bracha. So this is telling us in general terms now that this section of the Bracha, we'll get back to it, the words here, when we say B'tein Talumatar, B'tein Bracha, inside of Israel, we start asking for the rain on Zayin Cheshvan, and we stop with the first day of Chol HaMoed Pesach, we start saying B'tein Bracha. In Chutz La'aretz, they are still saying and will continue to say B'tein Bracha all the way until December 4th this year, and then they'll switch then. Obviously, questions come up, what happens when you travel? You already say you're here in Israel, you start 2 weeks from now, and you're already saying B'tein Talumatar, you go to the United States, and now they're saying B'tein Bracha, what do you do? I'm not going to answer that tonight. If I get to it eventually, I will, because I don't want to get to that tonight, because all kinds of opinions on it. And I've had the question come many times, and for myself. If you're in Chutz La'aretz, like I say, it's in December, and otherwise, like us, we'll start moving over to Talumatar in this Thursday night. Why is there a difference? And why so much earlier here? So historically, the reason that they asked for rain 60 days after what's called Tefufat Tishrei, which again works out to December 4th or 5th, was based on the time in Bavel, in Babylonia, when they needed rain, not Israel. Since Israel has a different weather calendar, so it's based on when Israel needs rain. So in Israel, we know that the rainy season is winter, which begins now. Wait a minute. So why don't we start saying B'tein Talumatar right after Sukkot? Why do we wait? So nowadays, if a person comes to Israel to visit for Chag, or a person comes from the Galil to Yerushalayim for Chag, nowadays, they drive, they take the train, person comes from Chutz La'aretz, they fly, in a matter of hours, they're back home. But in ancient times, it took time to go from Yerushalayim back to where they were. It took many, many days. So the amount of time it would take the average person to go back from Yerushalayim, who came to be Mekayim the mitzvah of Aliyah L'Regel, to come to Yerushalayim on Chag, it gave him time to get home to his house in most parts of Israel before they were asking for a trade. Why would we want it to start raining and make it difficult for people to go back home? They may not come to Yerushalayim in the first place. So therefore, we start asking in Israel for rain, only starting Zayin Cheshvan, because that already is a long enough time. It would give people in ancient times enough time to get back to Yerushalayim, to their home outside Yerushalayim. Amazing, amazing fact. and I've seen this. I read this in a shiur a few years ago. I gave it as part of a shiur also years ago, so I don't remember all the details. Hashem adjusts our rainy season and the seasons based on our calendar. Right now should be the beginning of Kislev. If it wasn't a leap year this past year, right now should be beginning Kislev. And now it should be the beginning Kislev. It should have been raining already for the last 3 weeks. But it hasn't been. We had a little tiftuf, we had a little drizzle yesterday, did nothing. So Hashem makes it that when we have a leap year, that the rain falls in line. 3 keys are given only to Hashem, that he will never give all away to the people themselves. We learned this in the story of Eliyahu. The key for rain, the key for birth, and the key for bringing back what's called Tchiyat HaMetim, revival of the dead. Hashem holds that key. Hashem holds the key of when rain is going to come. You should have been asking yourselves, wait a minute, it's a leap year, so what? But it's already, it should have been Kislev, it should have been raining already for weeks. We see historically, like I'm someone important, just based on what I've read. Historically, when there's a leap year, it's not always true, but historically, when there's a leap year, the actual rain is also pushed off. It's unbelievable how Hashem has built that into what we call nature, but it's Hashem. Now, let's come back to here. What happens if you asked for rain in the summertime? If a person asked and said, now, technically it's still summer as far as the halacha calendar, you go back. Either it means if you finish the entire Shemona Esrei, you start all over. If you haven't stepped out, you go back to the beginning of Barech Alenu. Now, what happens if you didn't say Talu Matar Inimota Geshamim? Right now, you said next week, you say V'tein Bracha instead of Tein Tal Matar. You should have asked for it to rain, and you didn't. Machazirinoto, he goes back. Afal Pisha Sha'al Tal. Even though he said Morid Hatal, let's say, Avalim Sha'al Matar, even if he said V'tein Tal. Avalim Sha'al Matar, he said Tein Matar, he didn't say Tal Umatar, Velo Tal, in Machazir. No, if you mentioned Matar, which is rain, by the way, from there you get the word Mitriya, umbrella, then that's okay. Now, what about, I didn't put it on the screen, but what about Mashiva Ruach and Mashiva Ruach or Morid Hatal? So first of all, we have to understand that in the Chutz La'aretz, there's a different custom when it comes to the words Morid Hatal. Ashkenazim, for the most part, in Chutz La'aretz, during the summer months, do not say Morid Hatal. They'll say Mechayim Eitim Atarav Lo'Shia, and then continue. There's no Morid Hatal. In Israel, even Ashkenazim, even Nusach Ashkenaz, is to say Morid Hatal. The benefit of that is that if you forget to say Mashiva Ruach, like right now, let's say tonight, I daven Mariv, did I say Morid Hatal? Did I say Mashiva Ruach? I'm not sure yet. Or I know I said Morid Hatal. I for sure didn't say Mashiva Ruach. You don't go back because you said Morid Hatal. That's already sufficient coverage. If you're in Chutz La'aretz, and therefore your minhag is your Ashkenazi, you don't say Morid Hatal. You just left the blank. You go back because you didn't say Mashiva Ruach. That important. I'm going to bring up one. I think I have the slide all the way at the bottom. I'll just kind of jump down here a second. Yeah, here. You will find when you go into most shoals, a board that shows reminders of things. It put up there Parshat Shavua, in this case, in this picture, it's Acharei Mot. Then it says V'tein Talu Matar, the time period of Talu Matar. You have to remember to say that. There's Shabbat Mevarchim in this picture. There's Sfirat HaOmer, and also wishing Yom Shabbat Shalom. So in Ashkenazi shoals and Nusach Sfard shoals, you will see either it says V'tein Talu Matar, or you'll see it says V'tein Bracha, to let us know what this, to let people know what to say in the bracha of Barech Alenu. However, you walk into a Sfaradi shul, you're going to see something different. In the Ashkenazi shul, you see either V'tein Talu Matar or V'tein Bracha, like you see on the right side. In the Sfaradi shul, you'll see it says either V'tein Talu Matar or it says Barech. What does that mean? You say the word Barchenu instead of V'tein Bracha? No. You say a completely different bracha. There, if you look and you open a Sfaradi Sidur and you look at Shemona Esrei, it's the only bracha like this in all of Shemona Esrei. It's not that the word is different. The entire bracha is different. The winter bracha is much longer, it's very similar to what people say when there's a lack of rain. In Ashkenazim, add things in Shema Kolenu for rain. It's very similar to those words. And if it's the summertime, which we're still saying, is Barchenu. It's a completely different paragraph. So I was actually with someone who I don't think has ever been in his Faradi shul a few years ago, walked in for Marav and Motzei Shabbat, and he's looking at the board they have. He looks and says, "What's Barchen?" So I said, "Should I open the Siddur?" And I showed you have bracha for winter, Tein Matar. It's long bracha, but it still starts Barech Alenu. And the other possibility, which is the summer, it doesn't start the words Barech Alenu. It starts the word Barchenu. So it's a totally different bracha. And I tell you that just so you should be educated. You should know that there's such differences. Okay, let's go back now. Get this set up. That's where I want to go to. Did that. Okay, I'm going to keep this on the screen. Oh, I'll put something else for myself on the screen, my notes. Okay. If we look again at this bracha, we'll see that it tells us about a bracha, bless the year, bless the crops, something about the ground, bless it like prior years. So what really one of the things I've mentioned before, I should make this smaller. One of the things I mentioned before is that every bracha that Chazal wrote for Shmona Esrei, there is a pasuk it's based on. Went too fast, sorry. Here. Okay. There's a pasuk in which the bracha is based on. So we have to understand what pasuk is this bracha based on. It's not very clear. This is probably the only one in Shemona Esrei that I'm aware of that's a little bit of I don't say kvetch, but it's a little bit kind of backing in something that's absolutely not 100% clear. We already saw, for example, in Rifa'inu, there's a pasuk, I think it was Yeshayahu, Rifa'ini Hashem ve'erav, no, Yirmiyahu. Rifa'ini Hashem ve'erafei, Hoshi'eni ve'ivashea. In the singular. Heal me, O Lord, I'll be healed. Save me, O Lord, I'll be saved. So that's pretty close, pretty straightforward. Where does this bracha of Barech Alenu and specifically about shanim, about years, where does that come from? So there's a pasuk in Yoel. So let me tell you first, Yoel is basically one topic. It's very short. I think it's 4 prakim. It's one of the Trei Asar. If you're not sure what that is, in Tanakh, there are 24 books of Tanakh. There's one book that has 12 what they call minor prophets. I don't know why they're called minor prophets in English. Some have like one parak, and some are many, many prakim long. And this is called Yoel. In Yoel, there's a narrative about a massive invasion of Chagav, of Arbeh, of locusts. Now, and it did terrible, terrible damage. And it says it was the worst ever. The obvious question, of course, is you know that in a few weeks we're going to read about the Makkah of Arbeh in Sefer Shemot, and it says that when Hashem talks about the particular plague, it says V'lo kamohu v'lo yiyeh. There never was a plague like this, and there never will be a plague like this. And yet the Navi tells us in Yoel it was the worst ever. So how could that be? The answer is, among many possible answers, that in the story in Shemot, the Arbeh was one genus, was one species that did the damage. In Yoel, it's multiple damages. Sorry. So, anyways, there's a pasuk that says like this: "V'shilamti lachem et hashanim." I will restore your years. Asher achal ha'arbeh, that the arbeh, the locusts ate. Hayelek ve'chasil ha'gazam. Those are different vegetables that grew. Cheli hagadol asher shilachti bachem. My great army that I sent, or soldiers that I sent against you, or against them. So what does that mean? V'shilamti lachem et hashanim. I will restore to you those years that they took from you. I said this is called Birkat Hashanim, and we also say Barech Alenu Hashem Elokeinu et Hashana Hazot, and we talk about Shanim Hatovot. We talk about, right. By the way, the word Shana is Nikeva, but the plural is Shanim. So we talk about Shanim Tovot, Shana Tova, not Shana Tov. Anyways, so the fact that we mentioned the word shana in the bracha more than once, I think 3 times, 4 times, including the bracha itself and the end, um, that it's not really the kind of a unit of measure one would think of when we're talking about blessing. Say, bless our life, bless our parnasa. What is the connection of the idea of blessing the year? What does that do with this particular bracha? What we're really looking for. So first of all, on the surface level, what we're looking for is prosperity, prosperity for food. What is the most obvious object that could give us such prosperity? The earth, because we grow things. We we were originally obviously an agrarian society. Things grew. Back then, everyone was a farmer. Nowadays, you have X amount of people that are farmers. But we associate the bracha of parnasa, the bracha of prosperity, with food, sustenance, and we're asking that there should be like an agricultural framework for this bracha. But still, what does it have to do with shanim? So you could say, of course, that there's the concept of an agricultural year. We know that in the Torah, when it talks about the Shalosh Regalim, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, it refers to them in 2 different ways. And one of the ways it talks about them are the agricultural cycles. Talk about, for example, Chag Asif, which we just had, the holiday of reaping, of gathering. We bringing in the sheep. Sorry, and we bring in the food from the fields. So what's really going on? So this bracha is associating bracha, blessing, with our year, with time, rather than an object. Right? Barech Alenu et hashana. Bless the year. It doesn't say in the beginning, bless our stuff. And by the way, like I said, that's why it's called Birkat Hashanim. So we have to understand what we need to explain. That's the royal we. I need to explain what's going on here. When we say Barech Alenu et hashana hazot, bless this year. That's one difficulty. We have a second difficulty. The verb of the bracha appears 3 times. The concept of bracha, levarech, barech alenu, barech, barech, barech. But that's what every bracha is about. We could have easily asked Hashem and said, bless us with knowledge, bless us with refuah, bless us with slicha, with forgiveness, bless us with health. Why focus specifically in this bracha on the word barech, to bless, and specifically connecting it to shanim, to years? This bracha is specifically about bracha. This blessing is specifically about blessing per se. But obviously it has to be something unique to this bracha. By the way, as I've mentioned before, because I like language, you cannot modify the word unique. You can't say it's very unique, it's super unique, it's extremely unique. It is unique. Unique means one of a kind. You can't say it's very one of a kind. It's one of a kind. So it's unique in this particular situation. And again, it's still unclear what it is we're asking. If it didn't mention the word the earth itself, it would sound like just maybe a general request for anything good. Just bless stuff, bless everything. So why is it? Why mention almost? I'd say it's almost generic. That's the word I'm looking for. It's almost like it's a generic bracha. There is one what seems to be a generic bracha, which we didn't get to yet, which is Shema Kolenu. What's its function? When we talk about that down the road, the bracha that comes just before would say, "Hear our prayer." What is that about? So many people look at it, partially rightfully so, as a catch-all bracha. Look, if I didn't have proper kavanah on this, I didn't think about that, I could kind of lump it all together. Just hear my prayer. Right? Okay, that's one approach. But it's still, it seems on the surface, it's also generic bracha, which we will have to deal with. But this one also still seems kind of generic. Bless us. So the two questions come together for an answer when we look at the chatima. The chatima, remember, bracha is the end of the bracha. Baruch atah Hashem, melech hatzedakah mishpat. Baruch atah Hashem, shomei tefillah. Baruch atah Hashem, hamachazir shechinato l'tzion. The bracha ends with Baruch atah Hashem, mevarech hashanim. He is the one who blesses the years. So now we could start off. I sort of hinted to it before. We could start off with an answer that the bracha was referring to agricultural prosperity. How do I know that? Because if he blesses the year, what's the year that he's blessing? He's not blessing the moon. He's not blessing the sun. What is there to be blessed? And that's the agricultural cycle. This is a cycle. Plow, plant seeds, you grow, harvest, and choser chalila returns, goes again. This is another cycle. By the way, the expression in Hebrew, choser chalila, choser means to repeat. Chalila doesn't mean God forbid in this case. It means in a circular fashion. It happens over and over and over. Choser chalila just means that it happens again and again. Anyways, so the year, if you're a farmer, the thing that you absolutely cannot control is the weather. You are 100. They say that, especially that in the United States. I remember reading this somewhere. I don't remember how long ago. They're talking not Jews, that they say some of the most religious, devout Christians or whatever they were are farmers because they understand that they're at the mercy of God when it comes to rain. But and that there's this yearly cycle. We're asking God to bless the year. But I'm going to read something I wrote down, and I bolded it so I would read it out loud. We actually, by explaining this bracha at this point, as God blesses the agricultural year, it kind of even ramps up our question, makes it stronger. Why did I'm just going to read what I wrote. Why did the Chachamim choose to particularize the request to agriculture, which, despite its clear centrality for the welfare of man, is not the only sphere in which we are likely to request material success? What does that mean in normal English? It's a little highfalutin. Shouldn't write like that. Yes, it's important. And even back then, when it was just an agricultural society, it was important. But there are many things in life that require bracha, that need some kind of material bracha for us to have success. Many things. If I'm a teacher, my success in Parnassah is an income. The fact that it's a rainy season and the fact that strawberries are growing and whatever, and wheat is growing and and apples and all these things, that doesn't help me. I can't go to Mickey's Makolet and give him an apple to pay for something. I need to earn money, right? I need to earn an income. So there's more than just the agricultural growth that needs blessing. So where are we going with this? Since the source of this whole bracha appears to be this narrative in Sefer Yoel, what I want to do, with your permission, is I'm going to read a bunch of psukim. We're going to learn it together. I'll translate as we go through. Let me just get it on the screen. Okay. I'm going to do this. Just give me 1 second. Let me put this here. Take a picture of something because it's hard for me to put two things on the screen that I want because I have the translation here. Let me just take a quick picture. This is so professional. Okay. Put it here. Okay, so let me go back to the slide. Okay, so again, this is Sefer Yoel. Get the screen here. Make this brighter so I can see my own phone. Okay. Again, it's important just to get the general idea here. It's not important for you to understand every single word. It's not important for us to go into depth in this story. Ben haolam al-mizbech yivku hakohanim mishartei Hashem vayomru chusa Hashem alamecha v'al titei nachalatcha lecherpa nimshel bam goyim lama yomru v'amim ayeh Eloheim. So what happens is that the priests and the ministers, I'm just going to read the translation, of God shall cry between the hall and the altar, and they shall say, remember, there's been this terrible plague, or things are going bad for the Jews. And the priests and they are going to go and they're going to daven Hashem and they're asked to spare us. And it should be terrible that the people should look at us and say, like, where's God in all this? Hashem was, quote, jealous for his land, or zealous is a better word, and he had pity on his people. God answered and said to his people, in spite of the fact that you had this plague of locusts. Now I'm going to send you all these the best stuff of the land right now. I'm going to send you the grain and the wine and the oil. You'll be satisfied with it. You're not going to be a cherpa. It's not will not be an embarrassment to the people. Etc. Let's go down to here. Al tiri adama. Don't worry, land. Now Hashem is Keilu talking to the land of Israel. Don't worry. Don't be afraid. Gili usmachi. Be happy. Be joyous. Ki gil Hashem la'asot. Al tiru bahamot sadai. Ki dashu neot midbar. Ki etz nasa piryo v'chulei v'chulei. Uvnei tzion yagilu v'simchu b'Hashem. It's going to, basically, this last part is talking about Hashem turning it 180 degrees. By the way, you don't go 360. It takes you back to your original spot. 180 degrees. Things were bad. The locusts were eating all the crops. There was nothing there. It was shemama. It was desolate. And now Hashem sends, I assume in a miraculous fashion, all these things grow. It's been a while. I learned, when did I do Yoel? About a year ago, I think, in this Project 929. We just today finished Tehillim. 30 weeks of Tehillim. We just finished today. Oh Hashem. Tomorrow we start Mishlei. If you don't know what I'm talking about, ask me offline. And now things are going to change. I'm going to grow crops automatically there. And it's not only going to be, oh, wow, thank God we have the crops, but now it's going to be a matter of joy and simcha. And the last pasuk of this says, as I said before, Vishilamti lachem et hashanim. I will complete your years. What is that? What was going on in these few psukim? The bottom line is, like, where's God? People asked, and we discussed this at the beginning of this war. Where was God? We discussed this. Where was God on 9/11? These questions are theological questions. They're important questions. Parenthetically, funny thing, people don't ask, where was God when things go good? Okay, but okay, that's fine. He's in both places. But the final result of this bracha, as I say, is, I'm going to read it in the English of this last pasuk that I highlighted. You shall know that I am present in the midst of Israel, and that I am Hashem your God, and there is no other, and my people shall never be ashamed. That's the end of this. The end of this. What is this ultimately telling us? What's the if P then Q, which is an expression in math? If P then Q in logic, the fruits of the land, the growth of crops in Israel is a sign of Hashem's presence among Bnei Israel. If we need some kind of a barometer of how are we doing, and we know this already from Shema, and we talked about it. If we keep the mitzvot, right? We have the proper rains, we're going to have the first rain, we're going to have the last rain, and you're going to have crop. We already know this concept from Shema. But that's over there showing us that if we're doing the right thing, Hashem gives us crops. Here, it's also showing us that it's also the presence of Hashem and Bnei Yisrael. It's again starting to sound a little bit like something we said in Rifa'inu, which is something having to do with the relationship between us and Hashem. I want to share with you a thought that really I was going to do with next week, but I want to end with it tonight because it'll help us understand something next week a little bit better. Tonight, it will just sound like a nice Dvar Torah. Next week, Bezrat Hashem, it'll click even more with this particular bracha. You just go, okay. I heard this Friday night in Shul Nezaron, and I've already told it over a couple times. It's amazing. Near the end of Parshat Breshit, this is the Ketav Sofer. It says as follows: Vayikrat Shemo Noach Lemo. So the baby is born. His name, they call his name Noach. And why was Noach called Noach? Because this one will comfort us from the sadness of the land that was cursed. What does that even mean? Right? So along comes Rashi on the bottom of the screen. He gave us respite. He gave us comfort. He gave us peace from the sadness of our hands. Again, what does that mean? So Rashi explains, until Noach was born, they didn't have plows. No one thought, they would just They didn't think about plowing the land. And he invented the plow. And what happened? Until Noah came around, what happened? People would go wherever they could find. They look, things were growing, and they would go to get what's growing. And sometimes all they found were kotzim and dardarim. They found thorns, hard to say this, thorns and thistles. Got through it. And other times they found food. Along comes Noah. He invents the idea of a plow so that they can plant seeds specific places. So instead of having to go out, who knows how many kilometers, how many miles from their home to find food, now in their own backyard, they can plow and they can plant. And in the daytime of Noah, they rested or they were comforted. This is what the comfort was, that they now made it much easier for them to grow crops. Very nice, beautiful Rashi, amazing interpretation. But there's something that's the Sofer tells us another level here. Every time there's new technology that's invented, there's something that the technology gives us besides the actual technology. When I was in high school, and I imagine some of you when you were in high school, if you wanted to do a research paper, you would go to the library, and that's the building that has books, and you would get off the bookshelf something called the Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature, the green books that would come out first weekly, then quarterly, and the yearly, and X amount of time, then every year, the final book. You wanted to do a research paper on pollution. So you went and you found in the Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature, you look up the word pollution and you would find articles, and you go online. There's no online. You go to the microfilm or the microfiche and you put it in a reader and you read it. It would take hours to find an article in Time magazine from 1964 about pollution. It might take just to get to the library, to take it up. What happens today? I want to know. I go on here, and within a matter of seconds, I have my answer. I can read the article online if it's available. I could get all kinds of information. So what did the technology do? It didn't just give me the ability to look at something now faster. It gave me time. Every technology, new major technology, whether it's the airplane, car, the industrial revolution, the computer revolution, in this case, the plowing revolution, it gave people time. So the question becomes, what do you do with that time? Which Tav Sofer goes over, he talks about that. Now, what happens when it comes time for the destruction of the world? This past week's parasha. Hashem said to Noach, the end of all living creatures has come before me. Why? Because it's become a situation of, whether it's theft, of thievery, or as Uncle's translated as chatufin, I mentioned that the other day. I'm going to destroy the earth. What does that mean, to destroy the earth? The earth is still there, right? Noach didn't like float in space and come back on a new earth. He didn't destroy the physical earth. Rashi says, Davar acher, another explanation. He already gave one and now another one. What does it mean at haaretz? Im haaretz. He destroyed, the word et in Hebrew, in biblical Hebrew, also means with. It has no meaning other than it's identifying the object of an action in regular Hebrew. But in biblical Hebrew, it also means with. So he says, Im haaretz. What do you mean he destroyed with the land? Sha'af gimel tfachim shel omek hamacharesha. That the three, I will use the word inches, even though it's more than that. The 3 inches of topsoil of the earth, mimochu v'nitashtishu, that they were melted, they were destroyed. The top layer of the earth was completely destroyed, which is the depth to which the plow that Noach invented went. Why? What's the midah keneged midah? What's the connection? Tav Sofer says that the people were given tremendous amount of extra time on their hands with the invention of the plow. They wasted that opportunity. They didn't use their time in the right way. Matter of fact, they used it the wrong way. Hashem says, I'm taking away from you symbolically the upper layer of the earth that Noach enabled you to have that time, so you learn, so the next generation will learn its lesson. That's Tav Sofer. Why is that so important? What does that have anything to do with this particular bracha? Same bad time, same bad channel. Next week, Bezrat Hashem, we'll talk about what does that connection really do when it comes to time We'll talk about that. And sorry, one second. There. We'll continue with this particular bracha next week. In the meantime, to everybody. Have a wonderful day or evening.